excitable breeds that get very, very excitable and hyperactive. They can get a bit too boisterous and too much for children. Also others that might be a little less forgiving. So most important is the early socialization with children. If they get introduced to children or grow up with them, and you also teach the children how to behave around the dog, not just the dog, how to be around the children, then with most dogs you can have a fantastic time. So mostly I would tend to say, think about which breed you really like. If you love a particular breed, go for it. I mean, ask the breeder or ask a breeder or people who have that kind of dog and see what their experience is or what they say. Maybe, I wouldn't necessarily I wouldn't have a husky or an Akita with young children. That kind of breed isn't really particularly good. Also, the very small toy breeds, like the very small, the toy poodle, for example, remember that they could easily get hurt by children because boisterous little boys, for example, don't tend to be so careful. So especially when they're puppies, maybe the very, very tiny dogs might not be so suitable either. But even the most... So dogs generally that tend to make good family pets, are good with families and children, are the people-orientated breeds that are very biddable, that just love human companionship and are quite eager to please. Even though, some people say, well, they're not eager to please, but they're what I mean is that differences within the breeds. Some are definitely more biddable than others. But the important thing is that they are socialized properly. Even the most biddable dog can become a total nightmare if he or she doesn't get the right guidance or just is left unsupervised with children. If you just leave them unsupervised and a child pulls a tail or isn't very nice, then then you'll still have a nightmare on your hands. But generally speaking, there are some breeds that are particularly popular, and there's a reason for that. For example, Labradors and Golden Retrievers tend to be very, very popular, and they can make wonderful family pets. But both of these are very active. They need to be trained and they need to be walked. An under-exercised, untrained Labrador or Golden Retriever can be a real handful. And because of their size, they can also then, very easily knock toddlers over, of course. So you do need to supervise them. A Bulldog, on the other hand, doesn't need a lot of exercise. They can be quite stubborn, but they're also very docile and can also be brilliant with children. Staffies, the much maligned Staffy, Staffordshire Bull Terrier, was actually called the nanny dog. And because it's got this macho fighting dog image these days, the shelters are full of them. They are full of them. But they're very good around children. What they aren't, though, is they're not doggy dogs. So if they get challenged to a fight, they will probably not back down. They will take the fight. So they're very good with children, and they're great with their family. They're trainable. They're lovely and affectionate. But with other dogs, you do need to know what you're doing. So if it's your first dog, maybe not. But do have a word at the shelter, see what they say, whether it could be a good match for your family. Then the Keeshond, a Dutch breed. The Keeshond is a sort of medium-sized fluffy dog, looks a little bit like a Sheltie. And they can be very good. They're very intelligent, they're great fun, so you may want to have a look at them. Poodles, again, brilliant. And if you have an allergic child, then or somebody in the family, again, that's a good choice. The Bernese Mountain Dog, again a completely different dog. They are very big, but gentle giants, really, and they're very popular in Switzerland. And yes, they're gentle and can make wonderful family pets and can be great with children. And then, of course, everybody knows Lassie, So the collie, the good old collie, also a good choice. Whereas I would say the border collie is very popular, and you will all have seen them in the agility trials probably. They are often called the most intelligent of dogs, and they are very, very intelligent, but they're also working dogs, and they have a very high drive. And if you have them in your family and you just walk them for an hour a day, this dog will probably drive you nuts, because it needs constant stimulation, it needs something to do, it needs to be worked. It's not a dog you can just have quietly lying in a corner and then be happy with a couple of walks around the block. That won't work. So if you're a first-time dog owner, as wonderful and beautiful as they are, maybe Border Collie is not for you. They need a lot of exercise, they need a lot of structured work. They really want to work, whatever work means. It could be agility, it could be field trials, it could be all kinds of, sort of dog sports out there, but they won't be thriving with just a walk in the park. So just that's a word of advice. So generally the working breeds, again, Cocker Spaniels. Cocker Spaniels are beautiful dogs, they're medium sized, so Tracy, that might be one for you, or a Cockapoo, because Tracy asked whether can I recommend any mid-sized breeds. Calm in temperament, not too lively. Okay, Cocker Spaniels can be lively, and they need some stimulation as well, but they're lovely dogs and a lot of fun. Good. Tracy also says, I quite like the idea of crossbreed like the Labradoodle. Well, a medium-sized alternative to the Labradoodle would be the Cockapoo, the Cocker Spaniel Poodle cross. They're very popular. They are also they don't shed too much and are great fun, are very biddable, are very trainable, great dogs. So if it's a medium-sized dog you want, they could be good fun. Also, a breed that might not immediately spring to mind is the Greyhound. Greyhounds have the reputation of just being these fast dogs that need to run and run, but actually they don't. They need a spurt of energy. They have spurts of energy, so they need like 20 minutes of really madly running around in circles. But for the rest of the time, they're quite happy to just lie around. They're really couch potatoes. So that could also be a dog for Sue, because Sue said, I'd love to get a dog, but I work 5 days a week and my partner works 4 days a week. I'd be able to walk the dog before and after work, and we could get a dog walker during the day. Would this be viable? My ideal breed would be a Labrador, but maybe a lower energy cross like a Pugalier, so Cavalier Spaniel and Pug cross, might work. What do you reckon? Well, I say, I'd reckon, have you thought about a Greyhound, for example, because they are quite happy to lie around a lot. And of course, the Greyhound rescues, they're always the ex-racing Greyhounds, who are usually really good with people because they've been handled by trainers and by lots of people during their racing times, and they deserve a good home. So you won't need to walk them that much. But of course, no dog is really happy to be left alone for long stretches of time. They are sociable animals and they want to be with somebody. So good for you for at least considering a dog walker. So you can make it work, people do make it work. So having a dog walker is a good idea so that the day is broken up. I would never recommend leaving a dog for a whole working day. It's just too much. And I mean, think about it. If you were locked into a room or into your flat with nobody to talk to, no TV, no computer, nothing to do, just lying around waiting for someone to come back, and then in the evening, you might walk the dog, and then how much interaction can you really give the dog? I would definitely say don't use get a Labrador at all. Labradors cannot be left alone for long, or if they do, they really suffer. Labradors are amongst the dogs most prone to suffer from separation anxiety. They really need to be with someone for most of the day. Of course, you can leave them for an hour or two, but not on a regular basis, not 4 days a week for most of the day. They will suffer, they really will. That goes for many gun dog breeds. They have the greatest tendency to suffer from separation anxiety. German Shepherd dogs as well, for example, because they're very much one-person dogs and they do suffer if they're left alone. Do look very closely at any breed that you consider. Some will cope better than others, even though it's not an ideal situation for any dog. So if you can maybe find day boarding rather than just a dog walker, maybe if you can at least for 1 or 2 days of the 4 days that this dog would be on his own, organize for day boarding so that there's somebody else around where the dog is happy and maybe gets to interact with other dogs as well for more than just an hour's walk. That would be great, and then I think that could work. What else? Yeah, another alternative might be a Shih Tzu. A Shih Tzu is, I mentioned that in the asthma breeds, is a very small dog, but also not terribly active. Quite happy to play games in the house, can be quite active in the house, but is also quite happy to snooze a lot. So not too bad. A Pugilier, well, pugs again don't like to be alone very much. Neither do the Cavaliers really, but the pugs should really only be left for short periods, and since half the dog would be a pug, probably not the ideal cross for you. A completely different dog again is a Mastiff. Huge, but actually quite good for apartment dwelling. People tend to be surprised, but it can be the bigger breeds can sometimes be better suited for apartment life, because some of the little ones can be very active and run around and bark a lot and generally drive your neighbors crazy.